When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to The Meta Show. Today is May the 14th, 2022. I am Brisker Ball. I am joined alongside the man, whose name, the mere mention of his name, causes the bowels to loosen in C-tier coalition leaders around New Eden, the Mittani. Hi, boss. We had some fun this week, didn't we?
We did. And you know, I think you really got to give credit to people in your organization that are taking point on these things. It would be so easy to be, I saw the title and I appreciate it. The Mittani sends fire his regards, but I really want to give shout outs to the entire Jeff team, to our amazing allies in Inet and Hyper Viper and a whole bunch of folks that worked together to make this caper happen. I would like to say that my fingerprints were all over it, but actually I'm more proud of the fact that my fingerprints weren't all over it. I was watching things and helping, you know, herf the blurfs and whatever. But, you know, the kids did great. They fucking went out there and they figured out a way to twist the knife and make some hijinks happen. And we are actually, I want to give a quick thing here. Fireside is tomorrow, usual time. But for those of you that are tuning in right now, I know that there is Eurovision tonight. I know that there's a lot of things going on, but if you're in the Imperium at 2300, we're forming up. We're going to be attacking the armor timer of a Fortizar in T2. And we know NCDOT and PL and Horde, all the bad guys are going to be doing their thing. And they've just deployed on us. So we want to make sure, again, we give them a good time. You've seen me ping about it earlier. I'm just saying it on the Meta Show right at the gates. 2300 Eve. It's a Saturday night. We're going to stay up late. You can listen to Mind One. And we are going to dot our I's and cross our fucking T's. And I also appreciate the level 5 hype train. I saw Crazy DC or Crazy Dissy. I don't know how to pronounce your fucking name because it's the internet. Nephalian. You have just a bunch of people throwing money at the fucking screen, and I really appreciate that. It makes a difference. It makes me very happy to see that. Just like so much. I was about to transition into another topic, and I just realized.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys again for the hype train, because this is the Meta Show where the hype train chugs along. Choo-choo, motherfuckers. It's going to happen. 209% still going. You people are animals, and we love you.
We do. We appreciate it. We like to, you know, I don't like to interrupt my flow during the show when I'm like in the middle of a rant, because you guys know how easily distracted I am. So it does make a difference. And I often don't remember to say, hey, please throw money at the screen. But when you do throw money at the screen, you're throwing it around to everybody who's watching it. You're spreading subs around, and it makes a big difference. And I love having those hype trains before the show so that we can say high fives, and then scream and rant about internet spaceships as if we weren't men in our 40s that in theory were grown and
correct. And like with the law school and stuff. Well, I will say my boy Neth is in the chat. My favorite Ukrainian of all time, Neth. I'm calling you Meth Alien from now on because that's funnier. So you're just going to have to deal with it. That's your new nickname. So, all right. Well, we have got a show for you guys today. There was a ton of stuff that happened this week. First of all, we have our reactions to Fanfest. We have Fountain Frank's reactions to Fanfest. He'll be here later. And we absolutely have to talk about the actual in-game EVE news that matters more than all that other stuff, which is what's going on in Tenerifis. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to knock out our top story first. Our top story of the week is Fanfest, our faves and the fails. All right. Fanfest, as you all know, last week, Friday and Saturday, May 6th and 7th, was Fanfest. It was the first time Fanfest has been held in Reykjavik since 2018. I think it's safe to say that the hype that built up around this event was real. Now, did the event live up to the hype? That's the big question. And I say, from my perspective on the ground, and boss, I want to get your opinion on this because you've been to more Fanfest than me. What I tend to find largely is there's a tale of two Fanfests. There is the Fanfest that is actually happening in Reykjavik in Iceland, and then there's the Fanfest that's happening on Twitch. Because most of the day is streamed, the company wants to get as many people watching EVE streams as possible, and players who can't get to Iceland want to hear what's being said during the various speeches. There are keynotes, there are different segments, there are different fun things that they do, like CCP games, and those types of things. People want to watch, they want to see what's going to happen. And I found in my experience that the feeling on the ground is usually completely different from the feeling back home. And I think this was a perfect example of that. Would you agree with that, boss?
Yeah, I would. And you know, I'm going to throw some punches this show. I want to let everybody know that I will throw punches. If I'm starting off nice and red shirt and not black shirt, it's not because there won't be some degree of rhetorical violence taking place. But the every time, it's a tale of two cities, right? If you are at home and you're watching, and that's one of the reasons why I was waiting. I was waiting to see what would happen when our crew got back. And what their on the ground reporting was, and it was kind of nice to see, right? Like I ranted and I raved and I was very angry, and I have lots of things to be angry about, and whatever. But folks at Fanfest, our crew who came back from Fanfest had a great time. They had a great fucking time at Fanfest. Maybe they weren't completely happy with everything that CCP did or didn't do, but it was a very different scenario than like, oh my God. And I think Brisk is right. I think that is, there's always a internet Fanfest for those at home, and then there's the actual Fanfest for people that made it there. And I think that we saw that again this year.
So I think the other reason that I think is important to keep this in mind is the folks that went to Fanfest, these are the folks that have not given up on the game yet. They are not the angry people who are mad, who canceled their tickets, who didn't want to go because of all of the massive fuck ups we've seen from the company over the last 2 years. These were the true believers. So it's obvious to me, like if you listened and you watched, I think there was a lot of clapping. There were some areas that I think were a little underwhelming. You didn't hear any booing from anybody. This was not the crowd that was going to boo these guys off the stage. That was happening in Twitch chat. And I went back and watched Twitch chat and I will tell you,
oh man,
it was completely divorced from what was happening on the screen half the time. And the other half, it was people being angry. And I think rightfully so, because CCP made a couple of big mistakes this Fanfest, and we're going to get to those in a minute. But before we get to the bad news of what we didn't get and the problems that I had with Fanfest, I want to go through the stuff that we did share. They did share. That is good news. Sort of, because I feel like a lot of this stuff is is not getting covered because people were so mad that they buried everything new in the keynote after like the first 45 minutes when everybody tuned out. So we're going to walk you through a Fanfest 2022 review of what they showed that was new that potentially could be, quote, good. All right. So we're going to go through each of these in turn, and then we're going to get to what was bad. First up, the first thing that they did that I thought was good was heraldry. We are finally getting, after begging them on hands and knees forever, we're going to get alliance skins, we're going to get structure skins, we're going to get greater ship customization. They talked about hangar updates, a lot of cool things that we saw, because this is stuff that players have been asking for. And you can say, fuck off heraldry, who gives a shit? I do. You guys do. Because you've been asking for alliance and structure skins forever, and now we're finally getting them. And unlike how I expected it to be, I've assumed that this was going to be monetized. And if they had announced new monetization at Fanfest right after jacking up the price by 33%, that I would have expected would have got boos. But they are doing this in a system that's not going to require any additional money. And to be honest, the more I think about this, and there was some conversation on Push to Talk earlier today, it makes sense that this is something Rattati would push, because you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the reputation system in World of Warcraft, where you grind out your rep and you get all kinds of guild stuff, and you get all kinds of stuff that you can wear that makes you look cool because you have the better reputation. So we're getting a reputation system in EVE. And the way that they're setting this up, or at least that they have explained it to us, it's not going to be sellable. It's not going to be buyable. It's only going to be, you're only be able to gain these interbus credits or interbucks, whatever we want to call them, through doing certain things in the game. What certain things? I have no idea, which we'll get to in a minute because we're still trying to figure out what some of this stuff is. So we at least have the heraldry stuff. That is a player favorite, what people are asking for. Next up. I know you're going to roll your eyes, but there was a couple things in the new player experience thing that I thought was important. The first is they have this new tool called Naughty that lets them create missions, create dungeons, if you will, create different things in the game that they can use as content in HiSec and elsewhere very easily. And they created it for the new player experience, but it has use throughout the rest of the game. Why do I say this is good? Well, I know this is a Nullsec show, and we mostly have Nullsec people, but there are some HiSec Care Bears here that have been begging for new missions for years. They now have a tool that lets them create these relatively easily. So I think we're going to start seeing some of this stuff. They also announced they're going to update the graphics and all the kinds of stuff on the career agents. Great. One of the big stumbling blocks at the end of the NPE is getting to the next thing. The career agents tend to be the next thing, and it looks old and outdated. Thank you. And then they also talked about potentially providing rewards for recruiting of new bros to regular corporations. That's great. Hopefully we'll do this. But yes, again, this is new player experience stuff. Not the kind of thing that any of us veterans give a shit about. Next up, corporation tools. This is not going to excite many of you, but those of you who run corporations or alliances are going to get excited. Why? Because the biggest problem for these groups since the end of passive income with moon mining and everything has been trying to get money for the corporation and the alliance so you can fund all the shit that corporation and alliance has got to do. Boss, how important is this?
Fuck. And also, I imagine that this is going to get implemented just as soon as we finally have our developers in the Imperium have been working really, really hard to unfuck a whole bunch of things that needed unfucking. And I imagine that an organization as vast as Goonswarm, with as much talent and people volunteering their time out of their love for the tribe, we have been working tirelessly through all sorts of IT related hurdles to, you have to develop a third-party taxation app such that you can actually fairly allocate which corporations are contributing, which corporations are not contributing, and then how do you pool all of these resources together and make sure that people get SRP, right? There is this huge architecture of third-party apps of one flavor or another that many alliances have attempted to build, have been required to build to attempt to be able to get these 1,000-person plus fights that everybody enjoys. And it's really nice to see CCP doing something about this. And especially, we talk about the difficulties of starting up a new alliance. We talk about how difficult it is for smaller alliances in EVE Online to not end up as like renters under Horde's thumb or something. And here we are finally seeing CCP acknowledge that it will be a better and healthier game if it is easier to basically be a guild leader, right? Or a guild officer in internet space. If you're a director or an officer in a corporation, if you don't have tools like Seat or something else that you're already using, it can be a huge pain in the ass. And so I'm really happy about this, right? Like this is something that it makes a big difference in the game if it's implemented well. And it makes a big difference in a way that, assuming you're part of an organization where your leadership are not embezzling their shit and wasting your tax money, if it's run correctly, like you see in the Imperium, good taxation results in constant reshipping and immediate reimbursement, a lot of other really good things that makes the more difficult and annoying parts of EVE less difficult and less annoying. So this is a big deal. I'm really, really happy they're doing this. Great. Thumbs up, 2 thumbs up.
Exactly. And I think the bottom line is one of the biggest hurdles for small and mid-sized alliance leaders and mid-sized alliances to grow and become as good as the big guys are is they don't have access to all of the third-party tools that we do. So CCP making it possible to do more in-game taxation, the Excel integration that they announced with Microsoft, the VAT tax for market transactions, stuff like that gives them the same tools that we have, that we do on the side. That's going to be critical for these groups to be able to grow and to really come into their own. So I'm happy that they did that. It's something we've been asking them for, and it's something the small groups have been asking them for. And finally, I can tell the small groups, guys, look, CCP's doing something for you. They're not just fucking you in the ass constantly, despite what you think. They gave you something that you needed. There you go. All right, next up. Expansions. The quadrant system expansions up. I guess this is okay. I mean, the old days of Jesus features coming out every year, I think the big problem that we had back then was people felt like the pace of change was glacial and they weren't getting stuff done. But then they would get this, you'd get this big amount of like all kinds of new shit happening all at the same time. And it was kind of cool. They stopped doing that. Then they moved in 2014 to this 10 iterations per year thing that they never kept up on. And then we moved to this quadrant system. And every time that we talk about quadrants being every 3 months, it seemed like they were slowly becoming 4 and 5 and 6 months. So we're going back to the way it used to be. Mittens, do you think that's a good thing? What do you think? You think that's what we want to see, or is this going to turn into more of a people complaining because nothing gets done for months at a time because they're working on an expansion?
You know, I feel like I have seen this all before, right? Because now there's, you know, almost every other Fanfest, it seems, and I know we haven't officially had one in like 4 years, but it's been a common enough thing for them to say, hey, we're diddling with our release cycle and it's going to be amazing. And then they try something else and, hey, we're going to diddle with our release cycle and it's going to be amazing. I don't have a problem with 2 expansions a year. I think that right now what we see is that there is a trust gap, a credibility gap between the community and CCP. And I think that shifting to an expansion system, if they actually do it, and it's not just an excuse for why there isn't enough stuff, you know, if they want to come over the top and show, hey, here's a full expansion, here's all the stuff that we did, that would potentially be great, right? It's just the thing is you have to keep in mind that expansions are going to be judged. If you're going to call it expansion, it needs to be treated like an expansion.
It better expand things.
You know, yeah, exactly. There's got to be some red meat in there, right? Exactly, not just promises for new features. So I clearly the whatever system they were using before for the last 2.5 years has not really been working out too great. And so if they want to just say, hey, you get 2 big releases a year and we're going to stop fucking around with it, great. But I'll believe it when I see it. And, you know, who knows, in 3 years from now, maybe we'll be hearing about how they're going to be going to a quarterly release cycle and how it's going to be so totally different than expansion. So we've been here before, you know, prove our skepticism wrong. Right, exactly.
As we know. All right. Next up, this was the biggest announcement, and in some places it was met with cheers and rapture. In other places it was met with, that's it. But the Faction Warfare revamp. Faction Warfare has not been touched since 2012 in any meaningful way. The Faction Warfare folks in Nullsec have been complaining and combining together to try to get CSM members. They've managed to get, they got Phantomite on 1 year. They had Torvald on who was fighting for them. Even Gobbins was fighting for them. I was fighting for them. And then we finally had Arcia elected this year. I have to say Arcia wins the prize for being apparently the most effective CSM in history, because in the 2 months that she's been on the CSM, she's gotten them to commit to completely redoing her area of space as she wanted for the next year. So congratulations to Arcia Elkin. History's now new most effective CSM member. I guess she takes that title from a nominate. So what did we see from Faction Warfare? We see they're going to create these frontline systems and they're going to create functional borders. They're going to make it so that this is like a living border that goes back and forth in these areas and people are fighting over things that have value. And while they control systems, there will be lots of things in there to make money. So it's going to make it possible for people to want to go do this because it's going to be lucrative. The biggest, most important thing as far as I'm concerned is you don't need to be in a Faction Warfare corporation now to participate in Faction Warfare. Anybody can sign up. This is great because this is going to give everybody a chance to go do shit in between all of the stuff that we are doing. And I don't know about the rest of you guys, but my character is Kaldari. I feel an affinity to the Kaldari. I'll go fight for those guys when I'm not out smacking stuff around with Merc and Nam, or when I'm not out on an infinite fleet. So I think this is has the potential to get a lot of people into Nullsec who otherwise wouldn't be in Nullsec. And maybe, just maybe, it'll teach us goons how to play in Nullsec without getting our asses dumpstered by Snuffed. Just saying.
I don't know about that. That might be a bridge too far. We'll probably still get our asses dumpstered in Nullsec by Snuff, but, you know, I'm really excited about this. I think it's lovely that CCB Aurora got to get up there and show us all these things that she and her team, I don't know too many details about who is working on that. I just think that it's something that even if you haven't been a part of Faction Warfare because you have to commit to it, now they're going to change that so you can like sort of sample it. I think it's great. And I think that if I remember correctly, CCP Aurora has only relatively recently joined CCP. So I didn't hold the Faction Warfare presentation part of the keynote, to the standard of like, oh, well, when are they going to show us what have they developed yet? Like, I think it was great. I think that there was a lot of crunchy stuff in there, and the response I've seen from the people that I know that care about faction warfare has been very positive so far. So I think that that combined with opening it up such that you don't have to exclusively do faction warfare. I mean, I would love to get involved. I remember years ago looking into when it first came out, looking into can goons get involved in this? This might be fun. There might be some cool stuff there, because a friend of mine in Wisconsin, Frozen Fallout, was constantly talking about faction warfare. He was a really big faction warfare guy, but due to the nature of faction warfare, you could not, and you currently can't just sign your organization up like that. So I'm looking forward to that. I think this is some of the unalloyed good bits of the FanFest keynote.
And I mean, just to make it clear, one of the reasons why I love CCP Aurora, she was on the community team. She's a player. She came from Brave. Mm-hmm. She plays the game. She is very knowledgeable. She's not one of these devs that doesn't, like, she can say things, talk like an EVE player, and we understand what she's talking about. And I think that's why having her on this team that's working on this revamp makes me have some positive vibes for it. Now, again, the way you guys are all talking in chat, I'm not disagreeing with you, and we're not trying to hype this up. We're trying to tell you what they said. And then we're going to give you the bad here in a minute, and you'll see all the stuff that you want us to say. The
punching will begin soon. Don't worry, guys.
All right,
don't worry. It's not a nice meta show. It's not a blue shirt.
It's not a blue shirt.
We're good.
Correct. We have one more thing we have to bring up, and this one is kind of I'm a little worried about, to be honest. They're going to do a skills rebalance. They're removing the attribute system. Yes, finally, been begging this for 4 years. It makes no fucking sense to have some kind of Dungeons and Dragons style attributes, memory, perception, all this other kind of crap that no one in the game understands, except for maybe like 3 turbo nerds and Sutonia. And in the end, doesn't really make much of a difference other than maybe it'll save you 2 days off of your 3-year-long skill queue. It doesn't do anything. So tear those out. Provide bonuses to increase the amount of skill points that you train instead of having this random map so that implants and stuff like that still work. That's what I've been advocating on the CSM for years. I'm happy that they're finally doing that. Now, what they also said was they're removing the skill queue. That scares me for one reason and one reason only, and that is CCP Monkey's Paw is somewhere around here, and that always makes me nervous when they say something like, well, we're going to remove the skill queue. Well, what does that mean? Well, my understanding based on at least what I saw at FanFest was that all of your skill points are going to go into an unallocated pool, and then you're going to have your skill plans with that new skill plan system that they released, and you can dump skill points into that plan until it's finished. I don't know how that's different from the queue, but that's how it was described by CCP Nomad. You can go back, watch his section on the Living Universe presentation at FanFest, see what he has to say. The other good thing that he said was they're reviewing the way the jump clones work, because the way that the people use them is contradictory. You've got people that use jump clones because that's where they put their implants. That's good. You got people that use them for deployments, like moving around. That's good. Those two don't go together. And it's legit that they're looking into this. I hope what it ends up being is that we finally get more jump clones. That would be nice, because I would like to have more implant sets that I don't have to worry about going on a deployment or something because I can't go and I don't have enough implants. I have too many implant sets and I don't have a spare clone for a jump clone deployment wherever we go in it or goons. So we'll see what they do with that. I think that's, of all of the stuff that I think is on the good list, that's the stuff that scares the shit out of me the most, because it has the biggest potential to get screwed up. Now, the bad. The bad.
Oh boy.
So guess what the worst possible thing is of all the stuff that they showed us at FanFest? What's the worst thing? Well, I think you all know what the worst thing is. None of this shit is ready to ship. None of it's ready. This was more of a roadmap than anything else. We don't know when it's coming. We hear, well, expansion in fourth quarter. Oh, this is a road to FanFest 2020, or road to the 20th anniversary in May of 2023. We don't know when the hell any of this is coming. And I don't know about you guys, but I'll tell you, I seem to remember FanFest in the past, or any kind of big announcement from a game company or a tech company. They get up there, they do their little keynote speech. Steve Jobs waves the phone around. Oh, and by the way, you can buy it next week. Or, oh, by the way, this ships next week. Oh, by the way, you're going to see this in 2 weeks. Whatever. There was stuff that they showed that got oohs and ahs from the crowd that was ready to be put in the game. Not this time. I don't know. Mittens, was that your biggest gripe? Because it was my biggest gripe.
Oh man, here's the thing is that it's really kind of hard to know what's been going on over there, right? So in terms of talking about what's bad in a more nuanced way, I guess, without just screaming at the top of my lungs. Let me think so I don't scream at the top of my lungs. I think for me, the biggest question is what has been happening over there for the last 2.5 years, because I've been just sort of reading tea leaves. And like, I pitched a theory last week where I was like, it looks to me like what we're seeing here is like the wreckage of a cryptocurrency expansion that didn't happen, right? And I understand that the Interbus logo has always been that way. And I understand that the Interbus, like we sort of like investigated this a little bit. And I don't think that they were actually about to like release a cryptocurrency or something. And it's a really good thing that they didn't, because looking what's happened to crypto, right? Like, and the reason why I was concerned about this is because Pearl Abyss in their investor calls talked about how they're interested in NFTs and blockchain and all this crap. And Hilmar has been talking about NFTs and blockchain and all this crap. And it would have been like, for me, the FanFest being kind of meh, or like none of the things are ready to ship, or like whatever, as long as there wasn't like a devastating viral moment that would destroy the game, I'm a happy camper, right? Because we, in my view, is we can find a way to try to help CCP to make money and to not fuck it up. But if they had gotten up there and they said the heraldry is an NFT and the Interbus credit is our blockchain thing, right after they raised the prices like they did, I believe that would have been a killer. I believe that would have been the end, into Eve. And so I can't really tell whether I should be angry about the fact that there isn't a bunch of stuff ready to ship, simply because the stuff that they have been shipping has not been good for like 2.5 years. And the best things that they've done have been fixing the things that the Rattati administration implemented, that they were warned by the CSM, they were warned by the players, they were warned by everybody, don't do this damn silly thing in this damn silly way. They did it, oh gosh, it was awful. And then they get offended when you point out that, hey, you fire bad, you touch the stove, you got burned, maybe don't touch the stove when we tell you not to touch the stove. So I have really mixed feelings, because I'm like, on the one hand, they didn't release much and things aren't ready. So that means that we still have an opportunity to give feedback. On the other hand, there wasn't a big reveal of some sort of Pearl Abyss and Hilmar oriented, crypto fuckery. And the nice thing is that now we're having this conversation today on this Saturday, and over the last week, crypto has eaten the level of shit that it sort of deserves.
It's
People are realizing it's tulips. People are realizing it's fucking tulips. And
you had $20 billion in market cap go down the toilet, and now it's worth like 100 million, not even 100 million, like a pittance. Absolutely. And this was what these guys were going to base all this new stuff in Eve around. Thank God that we were able to stop them from fucking themselves, because that's what would have happened if they had done this and somehow tied us to crypto.
They had NFTs in the Alliance tournament, right? So like, I don't really know what's going on with all of this stuff. And it would have been even more of a game killer if they had announced all this crypto stuff. There'd been a huge backlash. And then like literally a week later, like the bottom falls out and people realize it's a fucking scam. So, sure, some of the stuff is bad. And so I'm just really like, I'm looking to the bits that I'm happy with. And, there's things are at least headed in a direction that is not terrible at this juncture, and they've acknowledged some of the bad things. We're gonna get into the details about how they've tried to fix some of the industry stuff and a lot of the scarcity crap that they're sort of unfucking. So I want to hand out gold stars, but that was basically it. Is none of it is ready to ship. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. That's where we are with EVE Online 2022. Right.
Now, the next bad thing, and you guys already know this, we don't have to tell you anything about this because you've lived it, and that is CCP's track record on planned updates when they tell us what they're going to do and it's not ready is not exactly what I would call stellar. Angel Titans, anyone? I mean, we have seen at FanFests tons of stuff shown that got everybody all hot in the pants, and then there was never a payoff. So I think anybody out there who's saying this was just words, it was just a thing on a screen, they just grabbed every idea that they had sitting in a pot and decided to throw it up there, those criticisms are all completely valid, because we know the one constant in this universe is this company will overpromise and underdeliver. That's what they do. And unfortunately, it's gotten to the point where they recognize that they do this so that they don't want to promise anything anymore. And I feel like this FanFest kind of put them in a tough place because they didn't have anything ready to ship. So they had to show us plans. And I'm sure that they're really freaking out right now, trying to make sure that some of those plans actually end up in the game. Because if they don't, I guess, is it possible for faith in a company to drop below zero? I mean, is it possible for that to happen? I don't know, but that's where they're going to be on the way to if they don't deliver at least a good portion of the stuff that we were shown on the screen. Otherwise, they're never going to be able to do another FanFest where they announce plans, because everybody's going to be like, you guys told us you were going to do this and you didn't. Why are we supposed to trust you now? Granted, we've been saying that for the last, I'd say, 10 or 15 years. But like a battered spouse, we keep coming back because maybe it'll be different this time. I don't know. It's frustrating. All right. My biggest criticism of the keynote in particular, and I think you guys had seen this, was the keynote buried the lead. Now, that's a newspaper term. I don't know how many of you understand it, but the whole idea is when you're writing a newspaper article, you want the main news thing that you're writing about to be at the top. The first sentence, the second sentence. Don't fill it with a bunch of fluffer and then get to the thing. You need to hit the lead hard in the first paragraph. They did not do this. What little new things that they conveyed in the keynote were dumped to the very end of the keynote, like an hour and a half into it. This was like an hour and a half keynote. And I think like an hour and 15 minutes in, they finally started talking about new stuff when CCP Aurora came out. But all the new stuff was caveated with, come see us tomorrow during our Living Universe presentation, or during the data presentation, or during the how to make a trailer presentation, or whatever they did. They put it off into another thing. And then, oh, by the way, come to these roundtables, all of which, just happened to not be covered and not be streamed. So in the end, players were thinking the keynote was going to be where they were going to get the oohs and ahs and all the new stuff. And what did they get from the keynote? They basically got a run through of all the shit that happened over the last 3 or 4 years since the last FanFest. That's fine, but it's not a keynote. And it's not what people were looking for. They wanted to be wowed. They had been coming in expecting the biggest content update in the history of EVE, because that's how it was spun prior to FanFest. And they walked away from the keynote thinking they don't have anything new. And that wasn't exactly fair, because they did have new stuff, but it was just buried in a bunch of other presentations that if you didn't watch that, and if you only had time to watch the keynote, you walked away and you were really disappointed. I think that was a missed opportunity. And I think the folks that are complaining about that are absolutely right, because they buried the lead. Boss, I mean, how many keynotes have you seen? Did you ever see them do something like this before?
I mean, I fell asleep during one keynote, I think in 2018 or 2017. It was the industry one. It was the industry people were very into it, and I hear it was good, but it was warm, and I had been partying, and I was tired, and I sort of napped through it. I think that this was just fear makes it difficult to give a good presentation. And I think there was a degree of anxiety surrounding FanFest and how it was going to go down. And that was, one of the challenges that the current CCP administration has is finding stuff that is genuinely popular instead of just like listening to a few random people who insist that they have the right thing. There's a Feldestry joke here. And then you ignore everybody else and you say, oh, this one person knows everything and everybody else is talking about the stuff. They're just goons, and ignore it. And so, they've got a challenge of knowing what is actually going to resonate. And if they listen to the CSM, it would be a little bit easier for them, because they could ask the CSM, hey guys, what do you, our player representatives, think is going to be, the lead here? What do you think is going to get the most hype? Honestly, I'm just glad that they didn't completely crash it into a tree.
Correct.
It's like, yeah, there was some good stuff in there. The taxation stuff, the faction warfare stuff, having heraldry in some capacity might be good. We'll see if they can implement it. But yeah, they really did.
I mean, all of the stuff they announced will be good if it ever ends up in the game, except for maybe the skill queue stuff, which I'm still a little agnostic about. But the rest of the stuff will be good if it ever ends up in the game. Will it? I don't know. but their track record for announcing cool things at FanFest and then, you know, making it happen is relatively low. And that leads me to the last thing that I was disappointed about in FanFest, and maybe this is just me, but no fucking cat ears, no Angel Titans. I mean, come on, guys. Well, this is the stuff this is crowd pleasers. The folks would have liked it. I'm just saying. Anyway, so that is our review of FanFest 2022. I think we're going to have to keep an eye out on what's going to be happening over the rest of the year. We don't have timelines. Like I said before, this was more of a roadmap than anything. CCP Emerald, during her segment of the Living Universe, or during her segment of one of the speeches, said that their timeline for expansions was going to be, they'd start the first expansion fourth quarter. They're claiming that we're in the middle of one of these new story arcs that they were talking about as part of the expansions right now. But I'll tell you, this is another thing that it leaves me a little bit, you know, annoyed with, is they like to play these mystery games where you have to figure out, based on clues that are in the scope videos and clues that are in this and clues that are in that, as to what's happening. And I don't have the attention span or the lore knowledge to be able to do that. And I feel like if you guys are going to spend all your time trying to hide shit to see if you can get Ashtarothi to tell you what it is, that you're wasting the time of most of the rest of us, because only he's going to be able to do that. Yeah. Just saying.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I have a few. This is sort of a off the cuff. This is more like a soapbox thing, Brisk. I don't know if this is a good time to jam it in there. I have like 3 points. Okay, so in the aftermath of all the recent drama, I've been in a position where I've had to criticize CCP a lot. Right. And I'm not going to turn around here and say everything is hunky fucking dory, because it's not. But in a situation, if they're shifting towards expansions and they're looking for things to include in the next expansion, we're sort of looking around and going like, what are a few things that CCP could do to immediately alter the game for the better, right? To what are some band-aids that they can slap on the sucking chest wounds of the worst of the scarcity nonsense? What are some outs we could give them that would actually improve things? And I talked to my people, and I came up with, well, I didn't come up with this, they came up with it, and I was like, oh, these are good ideas, I will tell people about them. So here we are, right? 3 things that could be done relatively simply to massively improve the gameplay of EVE Online that doesn't require too much coding, doesn't require much besides a few database entries. And I'm going to explain them a little, and then we're probably going to herf about this for a while. But here we go. The number one thing is to change the dynamic bounty system, to just park the DBS at 100% and let it go. And I'm going to explain that so it doesn't, so it actually makes sense to people. The reason why we talk about the dynamic bounty system out in Nullsec sucking is because the way the system works is that the value of a given Nullsec system in terms of its PvE output, and again, things are hellishly wrong if you have to hear about this from the fucking Mittani, because I'm not the PvE guy, but basically, the more you rat in a system, the less money you make in it, because the DBS goes down the more you're ratting and doing things there and making ISK. And then CCP coded this in such a way that the system would recover back up towards 100 or whatever if there was combat in the system. Now, one of the problems is the food chain of EVE Online, especially out in Nullsec, is fundamentally broken, right? Back in the day before they implemented the system, you'd have lots of like myrmidons and vexers out there floating about, being plankton and krill for the predators of EVE to come in and run around and gank. But imagine this. Let's say you have a system in the ass end of the drone regions, or the ass end of Delve, right? And somebody goes in there and they rat and they mine and they do this and they crash the DBS. Well, the way that the game works right now is that there's got to be a fucking fleet battle in that system, because combat is what's supposed to restore the DBS. Now, I ask you this. If there's no reason to rat in that system because the DBS has been degraded, so the myrmidons and the vexers and the Ishtars don't go there and do the thing, there's no reason to hunt people in the system with the degraded DBS. Therefore, there's no combat. The only way you're actually going to get a DBS to go back up is if it just so happens that there's a huge fuckfest of a fleet fight there that has nothing to do with the DBS. Now, you could be saying that there's a whole bunch of different things that need to be done to fix the system and blah, blah, blah. But I'm offering 3 relatively quick fixes that CCP can patch some of this stuff out and, you know, park it. Like I'm sure that a lot of people at CCP don't want to touch the system. They don't want to because it's broken. Everybody knows it's broken. The rationale behind it never made sense to begin with. So
everybody but Mittani knows it's broken.
What I would suggest is just set the DBS to 100%, and that if there's combat in those systems, maybe the DBS goes up, but just park it at 100% and let the game sort of recover, because right now there's huge areas of space that have been degraded because this game mechanic was just dumb to begin with. So easy 100%. Fix number 1. Easy fix number 1. 100%. Please just band-aid it and see what happens for a few weeks. And if you don't like it, you can always go back to the terrible way it was before. Number one, DBS 100. And number 2 and number 3 are actually kind of combined together because they're so obvious. Put the belts back.
Please, God.
Nullsec, put the belts back. Put the asteroid belts back. You want returning players to come to the game and pay $20 a month for subscription. If you haven't played the game in a few years and you come back to Nullsec and you go to where's the belt? Whoa. CCP at their art panel had a whole thing about how they added new asteroid assets, and they did a whole pass on that. And that's great. So there's new asteroids in the game, but they removed asteroid belts. That's bad for a whole bunch of reasons, because that's an area of content, and it's always been a core part of EVE. And people,
what's the worst reason?
Sorry, yeah, we want our asteroid belts back.
What's the worst reason? It's number 3.
The worst reason.
I fucking hate it.
Okay.
Rats on the gates. Get the fucking rats off the gates for crying out loud. We're about
to be at the rats on the gates. Number 3 is rats on the gates. So that's why. God. That is why. The second bit. So after I have to explain this to people, because some of the backstory of why it's the dumb way it is now is really dumb, and there is backstory. So the reason why, the third point, number 1, DBS at 100. Number 2, give us our belts back. Number 3, get the rats off the gates and back into the belts where they belong, and also nerf their lock ranges. It's ridiculous that so basically what happened was, back in the day, boys and girls, there were asteroid belts all through Nullsec. Every system you go into, there would be belts, not just anomalies. And what one day CCP did in the last couple of years, they removed the belts, and the side effect of this was all of the rats that were going to be spawning in those belts, in some cases they spawned on your gates. So you want to talk about something that is interfering with small scale PvP. This doesn't matter if you're talking about war fleets. If you ram a gang of 50 people through a system and there's 25 rats on a gate, like, who cares? They can deal with it. But if you are trying to engage in some sort of solo or small gang PvP and you're chasing somebody and they jump through a gate and, hey, there's 25 rats there, they can just sit there and wait. And after you engage them, the rats will target you and you will get owned. So the fact, like, essentially these are, I believe, 3 of the biggest sucking chest wounds in the Nullsec ecosystem. The DBS is fundamentally broken and needs to be set to 100. The belts need to be back, and the rats, which have been evicted from their belts, have been hanging out on the gates forever. This is something that when CCP took the belts out, they're like, oh, we'll get a fix in a couple weeks. It's been years. Right? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. 3 easy fixes: DBS at 100, give us the belts back, and fix the rats in the system.
Bingo. I mean, you don't even have to put ore in those belts. They don't even have to be real asteroids. Just put the rats back where they were and let people go and go ratting that way, and go chasing their officer spawns in Fountain and elsewhere. I mean, that's the thing. I cannot tell you the number of times that Merc and Nam and I on Rampage have been sitting on a gate in Stabbers or in Crusaders or frigates or some kind of interceptor, and we get pushed off the gate when we're trying to gate camp because of battleship rats that we can barely kill, that nuke the shit out of us when we're sitting there. I've lost a Nurgle to gate rats. I can't stand the fact that this temporary thing has been in this game for a year, and as Nominate and the Edge said last night on Rampage Incorporated, when it comes to IT, there is nothing more permanent than a temporary fix. Oh, they need to fix this. It's really bad.
Yeah, guys, anyway. we're just trying to find easy, low-hanging fruit, right? Like, one of the things that's nice after Fanfest is there wasn't a big viral moment like, don't you guys have phones, right? People are dissatisfied with the presentations. Okay, good. People are dissatisfied with the fact that a lot of shit hasn't actually been ready to launch. Okay, good. That's perfectly reasonable. Easy fixes that are either rollbacks or just changing a thing in a database entry, right? Like we're trying to look for the easy low-hanging fruit to restore the ecosystem. I remember recently it's come out that one of the reasons why the coral reefs have been devastated is there's a molecule in sunscreen that's on divers and swimmers. And it just so happens that coral reefs process this in such a way that turns it into a poison that kills off all the life and kills the coral reef. And essentially what we have had here, exactly, what we have here is a similar scenario in the fundamental like food chain aspect of Nullsec. Of Nullsec PvP, which is gate rats get in the way of small groups running around hunting people. There's very few people to hunt because CCP has this dynamic bounty system where once a system is degraded, you have to hope there happens to be a fleet battle there sometime in the next year or so. Though I don't know why there would be one, because why are you going to go to a system in the ass end of Delver Amist just to have a fleet fight, right? Like maybe you get lucky, maybe you don't. And then of course the fucking gate rats are making sure that, you know, if you want to do small gang PvP, you need to be able to go like, well, gee, there's 25 rats here that are all going to shoot us from 5,000 kilometers away. That's also part of it. Put the rats back in their asteroids and put a targeting limit on them, right? Why are they able to shit for 5,000 kilometers?
That'd be nice.
Easy fixes. We're just trying to do low-hanging fruit here. We're all on the same team. We want the game to be good. Fix it, please.
And I would like to say, for the record, that Mittani having a fish analogy in here was not lost on me. Just saying. My boss is a fish enthusiast. All right, here we go. We are done with FanFest stuff. It took a lot longer than I was expecting, but it's good because we got a lot more content for you guys. We're going to move on to the big Nullsec Power Hour stuff this week. What happened to fire in Tenerifis yesterday?
Oops.
This is going to be fun.
Oh boy.
Hold on a second. Let me get you over here to the right screen. Here we go. That's not the right screen. Where is the right screen? Where is my right screen? Here it is. I got it. Oh my goodness. Look at this. This is a map of Tenerifis. Now, what is on this map that is weird that wasn't there yesterday morning?
Somebody spilled a bunch of Goonswarm Sov all over the place.
Look at all this Goonswarm Sov in Tenerifis. How did this happen? Constantine, I thought this was your guys' backup plan. Guys, we're going to seed Omist and Faith Abilis. They're just floodplains. We're going to make our fight in Tenerifis. Give us another week of hard fighting. And the cavalry will be on the way. We got PL and NC Dot and everybody ready to deploy to come help us.
Womp womp.
And what happened? Well,
oh boy, what happened?
Hyper Viper happened.
Hyper Viper sends his regards, and a whole bunch of things happened. So it wasn't just Hyper Viper. It wasn't just that Absolute Core, whatever their actual alliance name is, decided that they didn't want to be Fire Pets anymore. A lot of interesting strategic moves happened this weekend. So we knew that Pappy, being Pappies, we're gonna all blob together and then accuse us of blobbing them. Again, I want people to roll back a couple months ago. They started this fight. They started this war. Like, this whole thing began because Fire started aggressing on Red Alliance, and then Constantine the Sincere decided to be the lying piece of shit that he is and tell everybody that we invaded them because of the war in Ukraine, which is wrong and fuck you. So, hey, look, PL and NC Dot, they're all going to come, and Horde is turning up. And, you know, I can't blame them because, you know, we're goons and we fuck up and dreads get lost, right? So they heard the dinner bell ringing, and they all came running. And so we wanted to throw a little party for them. Now, again, Opsa 2300 looks like they want to party with us today. So we're going to have an opportunity to maybe see some kind of violence back and forth, hopefully. Looking forward to that. But essentially what happened was we came to T2, which is the system that some of them were staged in. These guys move staging. You guys remember how Pappy works. They move staging systems constantly. So some of them, including Test, were kind of a rounding error. I actually forgot that Test had staged in T2, but T2 had been one of their staging systems. And we turned up and we set everything on fire. We destroyed the iHub there. It was a key bridge link system for them. It was a part-time staging system. And I had hoped to really just kind of like mess with their deployment because, you know, if you see everybody's going to be deploying against you, the appropriate thing to do is to stomp on their throats repeatedly until they beg for for fucking mercy and call you an evil goony blobber, at which point you can remind them that they started it and that they're a bunch of projecting hypocrites. Now,
not only did they call you a giant goony blobber, they accused us of putting malware onto their systems that let us hack their version of Seat.
Oh,
this
my
is
God.
the level of copium that is being constantly smoked by folks in Fire is enough to keep most of North America high constantly. It's unbelievable what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So basically, we flipped a couple systems of SOV, and immediately and all day today, not only has PL and NC. been moving into the front lines of XVV, which I'm pretty sure they weren't planning on deploying to begin with, but something happened and they decided that they wanted to make sure that they were moving their capital ships at least one midpoint away from ours, and a lot of pointing fingers about how we're bad for bringing supers because we should have just let them kill our dread fleet without any consequences. Who knows? We're it's the Imperium. We may have this 2300 op and fuck everything up and doom and gloom or whatever, but I'm really happy with how it's gone. And also it was really nice to just get the gang together, right? Like we said, hey, this is important, we got a thing we need to do, there's going to be hijinks, but we're not going to tell you what they are, and everybody turned up. And we had fun, so I'm looking forward to that. The next, it's a good weekend in EVE Online as far as space chaos goes. So
I up on the screen, you're seeing Absolute Will. This was one of the two groups. Absolute Honor was the other group that flipped. These two groups flipped. Look at that drop in SOV. They had 18 or so systems as of yesterday morning, and now they have like 4. And they did that because Hyper did it.
Yeah, and also these guys, like the Imperium doesn't want any of the space, right? Like we're doing what we did in Tribute in other areas. So these guys in Absolute Will are actually going to Amist, and they're going to make their life free and independent of the Pappy renter system. It's important to remind everybody that the leadership of Pappy, and not everybody in the galaxy is Pappy anymore. Brave has gone off and done their own thing. Various other entities have not been seen doing Pappy stuff, but all these motherfuckers we're fighting, they're all Pappies. They're all proud Pappies. They're your old favorites, Arcadia Soul. You've got some Jackdaw FC. You got Constantine the Sincere. Everybody who was involved in the Vietnam War and lost the Vietnam War is here, and they're angry, and they're doing Pappy stuff. And there's nothing more Pappy than having a renter system. So it's always nice to see smaller groups being willing to say, hey, it's a big chance. It's a big risk for a group like Absolute Core to be like Absolute Will to, I can't even get the name right because we don't have any big plans or schemes beyond this. They are going to do their thing in Amist, and we wish them the very best for it.
More power to them.
Exactly. Let them, take what used to be this vast empty field of renter territory and turn it into something independent, because, it's not like I want fucking Amist, not like anybody in the Imperium wants Amist.
Correct. And that's the difference between us and them. And I think that's important to highlight again. We're not clearing this space because we want to take it and turn it into renter paradise. We're not fraternity. Okay. We're not NC. We are here to clear this space because Fire fucked up, and now they found out. And frankly, I think if anybody out there, if you're in Fire right now and you want to blame anyone for what is happening to you, don't blame Mittani. Don't blame me. Don't blame Dark Shines. Don't blame Hyper Viper. You blame Constantine. Because if he had not talked as much shit as he did, the chances of us still sustaining, going through and literally killing all of your structures down to Pocos in Faithabilis, clearing out every single structure higher than a Astra House, and I think there's only 2 of them left in Omist anyway. We killed the last Fortizar on Monday. We probably wouldn't have done this if you hadn't gone and made it personal and talked so much shit. But you know what? As the old playground saying goes, talk shit, get hit. And now Constantine's finding out.
From 4060p, where they will be nobly defending Deterid in the same way that they nobly defended Tenerifis and Faithabilis. And Tenerifis is still there. There's still some stuff to clear there. We've only just begun, and who knows, maybe this weekend they will show us what for. And also, I'm not even going to criticize them for calling these regions floodplains. It is an indictment of the renter system that the PISP people love so much.
100%.
That they had so many regions fallow and empty that were being landlorded by Constantine the Sincere and his lackeys. So all well and good. They had floodplains. It's just that if you're going to end up in a war against SIGs and squads, you probably want to make sure that your floodplain regions last for more than like a week and a half before you, like, generally speaking, if you're going to defend a region, you want to dig in and fall back. It's that whole defense in depth thing. The whole Fabian strategy, maybe, that the Pispies love to say was a bad idea, except that it lost them the Vietnam War. The second time around, we just didn't say it was the Fabian strategy. So great. You could do a lot more defensively. Take it from us, but I'm glad that you didn't go fuck yourself. And we'll see you on the field in a few hours, hopefully at 2300.
There you go. All right. That's the last thing we've got in terms of Nullsec Power Hour. Now, Fountain Frank is ready to stand by. We're at the end of the show. We weren't here last week, so you know what? You guys are going to get, yet again, 33% more meta show than you would have, because we're cool guys like this.
We are.
And plus, we got nothing better to do until this 2300 deployment anyway, so we got time to kill. So, should I go find Frank?
I think you should. I'm really curious to see, we were so disciplined. We were so restrained in our reasonable criticism of CCP. I want to hear what Frank's take on all of that was.
All right, here we go. Let me go find Frank. We will see you guys in a moment. It's time for a War Imperium update with Fountain Frank. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Fountain Frank Hour of Power for the next 15 minutes on the Meta Show. We're going to talk about Fanfest. Oh my God. Did you guys see Fanfest? Did you see the opening ceremony? Did you see the most important, best thing that happened at Fanfest? Do you know what it was? I'll tell you what it was. I'll show you what it was. It was me. It's a Fanfest. CCP Swift had the audacity to claim that he didn't know who won the Vietnam War. And I busted on that stage like Kool-Aid Man through a fucking wall and told them, you know who it was. Imperium. Imperium, period. Bottom line. Let me turn the chat back on because I don't know why it was off. You people. Here's another shot because it was so good. Look at that. Look at my legs. God damn, I'm fucking hot. And even George is there. George was there. He was totally there. He was there. He was like, hi, Swift, I see you. I'm going to monkey about in your innards. And that's what happened. All right. Now, I am here for one reason and one reason only. You people missed a whole bunch of shit at Fanfest, okay? And I know you're all sitting here complaining, why didn't we get this at Fanfest? Why didn't we get this thing at Fanfest? You missed all the stuff they did give you. So I have, for you all, the top 10 list of announcements you missed at Fanfest 2022 because you weren't paying attention. This is the stuff that you missed. Are you ready? All right, we're going to go. Here we go. Number 10. CCP announced a new partnership with Waste Management. You can now dumpster all your EdenCom ships outside of the client. Because God knows you're not going to use them, right? So shit, just dump through that shit.
Oh my God.
We got Excel expansions. We got Waste Management too. We got everybody. They're cutting deals left and right, people. You missed that, didn't you? You totally fucking missed it. All right. Next up, number 9. The new heraldry system will include a 33% off coupon. I wonder where they got that number. For a purchase of Crusader Kings 3. You like your heraldry? We got your heraldry. It's going to be fun. It's going to be amazing. I love that game. Brits likes that game too. All right, here we go. Next up, number 8. The skill queue is going to be replaced by a new XP system that lets players earn levels. And once a player hits level 60, you can buy a Titan with a new gold in-game currency and then run Molten Core. No news on whether or not we will get an Onyxia expansion, but at least you can take your Ragnarok to fight Ragnaros.
Oh my God.
Let me just tell you, that's going to be awesome. Many whelps, left side, handle it. That's a 50 DKP minus for not knowing what the fuck to do. All right, number 7. CCP heard players when they demanded cat ears for their characters to ensure the proper grim dark aesthetic. They've begun developing character wearable donkey ears. Well, shit, they're fucking mammals, right? There you go, Brisk with donkey ears. I think this is exactly the kind of thing that CCP Monkey's Paw,
the monkey's paw curls,
totally going to come up with. Let me just tell you. But you guys missed this because you weren't paying attention. You were too busy watching all of the other shit on the stage. You totally missed the donkey ears. All right, number 6. Faction Warfare revamp to include new basic Overwatch Triglavians that warp out and dock up whenever you hit local, so it still feels like the old Faction Warfare. Right?
Because you know, for everybody.
You know, that's I don't know what we're gonna do if Faction Warfare revamp. There are no bots in it. I mean, we got to have some bots, right? Like it's just, there wouldn't be Faction Warfare without bots. So they got to put them in. They'll be NPCs. It's going to be good. All right. Number 5. Passcode will finally be going away as soon as they can figure out how to replace boot.ini on their only Windows XP machine. I got to give them credit. Like it's amazing to me that they still have one Windows XP machine, but I guess, hey, you know what? It's like, you know, that's it. But I don't even know how did they even get to the login screen. It should have given them a blue screen of death before that, but who knows? I don't know. They're magic. So
oh my God.
That's it. All right. Number 4. Hilmar revealed plans for his new yacht, which includes a quote bitchin' IGC skin during session, justifying the price increase. This was one of those things that kind of slid under the radar because it was like it was one of those round tables that wasn't broadcast, and I understand why. But shit, like that yacht's pretty sexy.
That would lead, you know, right? At least they would deliver. You know, they're delivering something we can see for the last 2 years where it's been going. At least, you know, now we see. Oh, he's got a yacht too. Okay.
Right. I mean, this is pretty solid, right? I mean, that's it. That's it. All right. Number 3. Next up, number 3. Work on the 234th version of the new player experience has begun and will be completed sometime before the heat death of the universe.
Yes.
I'm excited
so
about
happy.
this. I mean, how could you not be excited that they're finally going to fix it at some point before we're all dead?
Oh my God. It's funny because it's true.
New NPE. Totally new NPE. Oh my God. All right. Next
It'll be released just after Star Citizen.
Right, exactly. It'll come out right after. Right. They'll do a 2-for-pack with Star Citizen when it comes out. It's going to be perfect. Yes. All right. Number 2. This one you may have heard a little bit about, but I don't remember. I don't know if anybody actually made this announcement, but we found out about it after we all got there and left, which is number 2. All FanFest attendees will receive a COVID-19 infection completely free of charge.
I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. It shouldn't be funny. But it happened, and we had to send pings about it. I believe everybody is okay so far, but wow, free super spreader event, free of charge. Oops.
Yeah.
Jesus, what a mess.
Anyway,
what a mess.
All right, and the number one. FanFest 2022 announcement that you missed. Angel Titans. Oh, just kidding. They didn't fucking announce that. Are you crazy? They wouldn't give us something we wanted. No, not for you. No. No. Not for you. Sorry, guys. You're stuck. You get nothing and like it.
God. Wow.
That's it. This is it. This is what happens, everybody. When you don't pay attention at FanFest, you miss all the good announcements. All right, I'm out. Mittens, we're going to go back to you. Enjoy the rest of the show. I'm going to push the screen back on here. I'll see you guys next time.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Frank, for telling us what happened, because a lot of us missed out. And yeah, so far a lot of the alliances have had to send pings around warning, saying, hey, people gotten COVID. We are monitoring the situation. It's one of those things where I'm laughing at it in the top 10, and then I'm like, oh gosh, wow. It's sad but true. But thankfully Omicron appears to be less awful than Delta. And I'm just happy that at SummerSwarm and at Vegas, we avoided COVID outbreaks. With Omicron, it's kind of hard to avoid. We had people who were at FanFest that were wearing masks the entire time in 95s, and it's just so fucking virulent that I'm afraid this is probably going to be kind of hard to avoid. So, and good on CCP. In the aftermath, when it came out, they're sending emails around to everybody that was at FanFest of what to do and try to help them out and make sure everyone was accounted for. So I think they handled it about as well as they could, given the circumstances. And we hope everybody who came down with it in any capacity gets better. And, it's get the Paxlovid if you can. People have been reporting that has been helping. So yeah, yikes. I think you're muted.
All right, let me say that again, because it wouldn't be a show without me muting myself at some point.
Fair point.
During the show. I would like to say, on behalf of everybody here, we want to wish everyone who has COVID, who got COVID at FanFest, a very speedy recovery, including all of our friends, Dunk Dinkle, Pando, Merkelchen, and my wife, who's down with it. So far, so good with all of everybody. Hopefully, we're going to get them all recovered soon. We don't want anybody having long-lasting repercussions from this, especially since it was at a fun thing, and I don't want that fun thing to be overspoiled by the fact that a lot of folks got sick. I know at least a significant number of the CCPers also got sick. So yeah, let's hope everybody gets well quickly, and we can all get back to playing spaceship games and blowing stuff up with each other very soon.
Damn straight.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of the show.
We have.
We made it. I hope you all enjoyed last week's 2022 WWE 2K 2022 stream with Mittens and the boys. We had a lot of fun with putting that together. I'm glad that Life Shifter was able to do that. Thank you for being here for us while we were gone. Next week, programming note, next week. No, we are not going to be here. We will be here next week. Next week is going to be our CSM extravaganza. We're going to have a number of the CSM candidates on the show. We'll let you know which ones those are closer to when we get them all booked. But we're going to talk about CSM 17. We're going to talk about potential changes to the CSM that they have introduced this time, such as not having to come to Iceland for a summit if you don't want to. We're going to talk about how effective the CSM has been in the past, how we think it might be in the future. And we're going to get to hear from some of the Imperium candidates, as well as potentially some of the other candidates as well, depending on who we reach out to. So we hope you guys will join us, and we hope you have enjoyed the show for this week. Mittens, anything else before we get out of here?
That's it. Constantine, I wanted to let you know you can eat my entire ass, and I hope you enjoy retreating to 4060p. Everybody in the Imperium ops today in a few hours. It's going to be a late Eurovision Hangout 2300 form up. Let us give NCNPL the welcome that they have been looking for to our dear little SIGs and Squads deployment. Thank you guys for watching. It's great to be back. Looking forward to next week for the CSM silly season.
Gentlemen, thank you. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you all for watching the Meta Show. This has been the May 14th, 2022 edition post FanFest. I'm Brisker Bull alongside the Mittani. Thank you all for watching, and you stay classy. New Eden.